Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What's going on, everyone? What's happening, everybody? We are here for August 31st, 2025. And yeah, we are in the middle of Labor Day weekend, but hey, we're going to try to do a few things here real quick when it comes to the Boxing Source podcast. Okay. Know that we had a few fights that did happen over the course of the weekend. We got a few things coming up here for this upcoming weekend. Of course, I had a extended show here, at least on this particular channel, but it'll be available on the DMV Boxing Network channel with another edition of the DMV Boxing Network show, where we had an extensive preview of the Pro Box card that is coming up at the Care First Arena in Washington, D.C. Of course, it's headlined by Jordan White versus Renee Tejas for the vacant NABF lightweight title. So if you haven't done so, here at this point, you can go back, you can check that out. Shout out to my god brother Rashid of DMV Boxing Legends that was able to join me live there for that particular preview, right? But here in this particular edition, wanted to talk about a few things, go over a few results that did happen over the course of the weekend. We did have something there in the lightweight division as Albert Bell went up against Keith Hunter there in Albert Bell was able to get a unanimous decision win. He did win a vacant IBF international title and the NABA lightweight title there. So you had as I mentioned there, the NABF, you got, a lightweight title. And then you got this here with the NABA lightweight title. So NABF probably, I think, is, more with the WBC. The NABA is there with the WBA as, I know an NABA champion there in the welterweight division, of course, with the sharpshooter Greg Outlaw, right? So here with Albert Bell, he won that NABA lightweight title. And then the IBF international lightweight title with his win over Keith Hunter there. That was on millions.co yesterday. If you're able to, get in there with that whole pay-per-view type thing there with millions.co. But Albert Bell, of course, was a contender there in the super featherweight division. Didn't necessarily get a world title shot there while having an undefeated record. And here he is in the lightweight division, seeing if he could get an opportunity to get one of those world title shots there at lightweight. He is now 28-0. That's right, 28-0 currently here as he has that win over Keith Hunter. You know what I'm saying? So, you had that there also as far as what went down, and that was at the Huntington Center in Toledo, Ohio. But we got a couple of topics here that I wanted to go over when it comes to what's going down with the WBA. I've been trying to see what's going on as far as their rankings are concerned, because it's supposed to be today that they would release their WBA rankings, or at least I hope it's today. You know what I'm saying? The last time you had the thing there for July 31st. Here we are, August 31st. I don't know if it's going to be later on today or if it'll be tomorrow. Hopefully they'll have the thing there where Labor Day thing, so we would have to wait until Tuesday for it. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's up with the WBA rankings here for this upcoming month, particularly with this recent result here for Albert Bell. And he'll be seeing if he is able to enter in the lightweight rankings there in the WBA. But with that being said, and I'm mentioning lightweight, right? You do have the whole little situation that's still been going on when it comes to the WBA champion there in the lightweight division. Okay. You do have, of course, Avante Davis as the WBA lightweight champion. I'm going to see here if I could go ahead and screen share this whole thing, because got this thing going on or going down. So I'm going to hit this up. I'm going to cue this up here on the presentation screen. There it goes. Here you're able to watch live here, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble. Listen, I got this thing. All right, you got Gervonta Tank Davis there as a WBA world champion. You got Floyd Schofield there that's been at number 1 for a good little minute. You got Andy Cruz there at number 2. Okay, you got Lucas Body there at that particular juncture at number 5. He also had a fight here that was over in Orlando. What was it, the previous weekend, right? On that most valuable promotions card at Caribe Royale in Orlando. So we should have a little bit of shakeup or whatever it is when it comes to the lightweight division there, as far as like those particular rankings are concerned. But what I'm trying to find out is if the WBA will be doing something in reference to the lightweight division and also the super featherweight division. Quick shout out to my guy, brother Lance, here on the live chat. What's going on with you? Here, thanks for joining in the live chat or listening in here for the Boxing Source podcast. But I was saying there, you got Tank Davis there as the WBA champion for lightweight. You got at super featherweight Lamont Roach Jr. as their world champion for 130 pounds. Okay. Now the thing is, they do have an interim champion, but with James Jazza Dickens being able to, at least for me, being able to recently get this win, because I think he was one that defeated Albert Badagaziev for that WBA interim championship. That kind of, I think that would have gave a little bit more leeway for Lamont Roach Jr. to hold that WBA championship and not have to, go over, what I would say, facing a mandatory challenger at 130 pounds or getting stripped. Now, of course, he had this whole little thing here with Cavante Davis. They had their bout there March 1st, Barclays Center. It ended up being a draw. All right. Now, with that being said, the talk over those next couple months from, March, the end of March through April, through May, was that there would have been some type of move to see if there would be a rematch between Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. Okay. But when, things happen as far as like outside the ring or some events that happened that ended up going through inside the ring, that gave, a little bit of doubt that the rematch was going to take place. Now, there was, of course, news, whether it's on this channel or multiple other channels, that we could have had potentially a rematch that could have been set for August 16th in Las Vegas, right? But given, what's been, what happened, particularly what happened in July when it came to Premier Boxing Champions, that kind of like gave the gist that if there was going to be any fight that would happen on August 16th, it wouldn't be that fight. That would have been a lot of resources. You had the thing there, of course, with July 19th and having Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios and co-feature there with Sebastian Fundora versus Tim Tszyu in that rematch for the WBC Super Welterweight title. That Tank versus Roach Jr. for August, nah. So then you get past that, and then as we, were able to see through the news, you have Tank Davis going up against Jake Paul, and that's scheduled for November and November 14th, Friday, State Farm Arena, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, so with that, happening, with that going down, that really like tipped off, the parties there of Lamont Roach Jr. Okay, now of course, if y'all been following this channel, y'all seen that I've been around with Lamont Roach Sr. out there at No Excuse Promotions. Of course, you have No Excuse Promotions with their upcoming fight card, as I said, with ProBox on Friday night. Okay, and with them, he was like saying like, what's going on? What's the deal here? Why are we getting good communication as far as like what's going on and what's next? And then all of a sudden you see this happening, and it's like, this don't look right. You know what I mean? But as I was saying in some time ago, with it being dragged out over and over and over, day by day, week by week, month by month, I was saying, don't be surprised if that rematch between Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. wasn't going to be next. Now, I've said there in other channels there, shout out to Brunch Boxing. I said it when I was on Brunch Boxing recently. I said, listen, if we go back to the post-fight press conference, I was there. Matt of Brunch Boxing was talking with, he was there. And the last question that was put out there in reference to Tank Davis was, going about the rematch. And even back then, he was hinting that, listen, I will want it to be next, but number one, if it was going to happen, it wouldn't be this year. And then second, it's not going to be next. And then he pretty much said like the person that they were working on having the next fight with was in the locker room with them. And people had to guess, Shakur Stevenson, is Shakur Stevenson? Like, no, definitely ain't Shakur Stevenson. That ship is not there. It's not going. It's not down. So that should have been the whole thing right there. That said, oh man, they're going for a fight with Jake Paul. And there you have it. Now you see that it is an exhibition match, which could make things, technically be okay in a sense, because it's not like Tank Davis is, for example, defending the WBA lightweight title against anybody else, against a Shakur Stevenson, against a Floyd Schofield, against, I don't know, a Keyshawn Davis or somebody that you could think of also out there in the lightweight division, like an Andy Cruz that's, there as you see in the rankings. It's not like he's doing that. It's not like he's having an officially sanctioned bout for the WBA lightweight title. So with that being said, that could give him, that leeway to go ahead and have this, as they say, this one-off against Jake Paul and not have any type of repercussions of sorts out there when it comes to the WBA and the lightweight division. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that that's one thing you could pretty much say that could be good on his part, having this fight take place here with Jake Paul. But then on the other sense too, when it comes to I guess terms when it came to the rematch, I don't know the terms. A lot of the people that are that are fans of the sport or those that cover the sport, they don't know the terms. Only the teams within Tank Davis and Lamont Rose Jr. know the specific terms of that contract and what stipulations are in there that says, okay, if it's something where, listen, I'm making the defense of this title. If I win, then maybe they're in the rematch. If I lose, there's a rematch. If there's a draw, that's up in the air. Usually, when it comes to fights, and they have like something with two, I guess two high-profile fighters, or it's something with either, like say for example, a voluntary defense of a world title. Usually, voluntary defenses have rematch clauses for the world champion. Just in case if the world champion loses, then they could have an immediate rematch. They have that option. Now, if it's against a mandatory contender and they lose, well, too bad, so sad. You lost. You got to go up the rankings once again. You lost to the mandatory. But here with the draw, it makes things, kind of sketchy in a sense, But over the course of recent history or whatever it is, or when you see like a draw result, you usually don't see much of a rematch that happens, immediately next, So that's the thing about it. Shout out to 2 Cents here in the live chat here on the YouTube joint, man. Shout out to you. Like I said, I'm going through the whole thing when it comes to Tank Davis and him, I guess, explaining how he could have been able to have a fight with Jake Paul instead of having a fight with Lamont Rose Jr. Okay. And I said there with the result being a draw, that kind of, opens the door. You know what I mean? And with it being, not that, the WBA kind of like has the rules where the WBA champion that moves up, they're not like immediately the mandatory contender for the next title up. Now, I don't think they have those rules like that. They make them like number one or, number two contender. Like, for example, right now with Jerome Boots Ennis, Jerome Boots Ennis is, they're around number two, I like this. And that's another reason why I want to see the WBA rankings right now, because of what recently happened there in Super Welterweight, which I'll get through later. But back to this. As I said, with Lamont Rose Jr., at least you see right here, you don't see Lamont Rose Jr. there in the rankings for lightweight. Why? Because he's still standing as the WBA champion at super featherweight. And with the interim championship at super featherweight recently changing hands, that kind of like makes things, I would say, a little bit more open for Lamont Roach Jr. to do what he's doing, or to fight whoever he could potentially fight. That's why he's talking about a possible fight with Shakur Stevenson, right? That's why he's talking about a possible fight with Gary Antoine Russell, or other fights that are out there at 135 or 140 pounds. Why? Because of that interim title. There at 130 kind of changed hands recently. So kind of like makes for a crazy situation of sorts there when it comes to the lightweight and super featherweight divisions there with the WBA. I try to follow their social media, see what's going on as far as like what's on X. I don't know if they got the thing they're updated on Instagram or whatever it is, but for X, right, I don't really see much of nothing when it comes to them and updating their status. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to see here, maybe if they got something on Instagram where they say anything in reference to the World Boxing Association. But I'm kind of like seeing a few things here when it comes to Instagram. I don't see any orders or nothing like that. The last thing I see there is when it comes to that super welterweight situation. All right. So here with Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr., I guess it's going to be, up in the air when it comes to the WBA. And the whole thing there with Lamont Roach Jr. as far as like taking action against the team, against Tank Davis and his team. Hopefully, I could get more information on that, over the next few days or the coming days. Of course, with Lamont Roach Jr.'s brother there, Jordan Roach, is going to be involved in that fight card on September 5th. And with his father there, Lamont Roach Sr., as the lead promoter and the trainer for Jordan Roach and Ben Johnson. So hopefully I'm able to get more information on that here coming up. I'm still, waiting on the thing here for the WBA when it comes to what they're going to do as far as like both Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. All right. So we do have that. Hopefully we get something sorted out within the coming days. I just think that there could be something there as we see what would be in the near future for both fighters. Of course, here with Tank Davis and Jake Paul scheduled for November 14th, Friday, November 14th on Netflix. And they had the thing there when it came to Lamont Roach Jr. that he could be fighting who, like a Gabe Flores or something like that. There when it comes to the overall rankings in the lightweight division, you got Gabriel Flores, right? That it's kind of like they're around number 4 in the WBO, number 14 in the WBA, at least in this particular juncture. We got to see where he's going to be ending up in these next rankings, as it was showing here, because as you see, Gabriel Flores Jr. is ranked number 14 in the lightweight division for the WBA. But, I got to see what they're going to do here. Hopefully it's going to be showing here later this evening. I don't know if I hit the refresh button, if it'll update the rankings or something like that. But if you're going to have a move to have Lamont Roach Jr. fighting Gabriel Flores to see what could be next out there for Lamont Roach Jr. if he does have the fight with Tank Davis, say, for example, probably around that March 1st or March 2nd of next year, maybe. I don't know. But here with this particular situation, I would say, hey, listen, you got this very lucrative deal or very lucrative offer for Tank Davis to fight Jake Paul, okay? And then with Lamont Roach Jr., you can have this thing here with Gabriel Flores, but maybe there will be an agreement in writing that says, okay, after Tank Davis has his fight, then we could go forward with the fight between Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. But once again, like I was mentioning before, with the fight result being a draw, usually that doesn't lead into an immediate rematch or any rematch in the future. So you'll have to see how that goes. As I said, try to see if I can get more information in the coming days for it or whatnot. But I think that is something for fight fans and other folks here that's following boxing to keep look out for, right? Real quick, wanted to see if I could touch on this here. This is from last month. This is from last month, right? When it comes to the World Boxing Organization, hopefully this is able to be shown here. Yeah. So you got the WBO, World Boxing Organization, and their heavyweight division. Of course, you got the undisputed champion Oleksandr Usyk that had his win over Daniel Dubois in Wembley Stadium, knocked his ass out. I'm telling you, man. If you didn't have that Brian Norman Jr. knockout, that knockout by Oleksandr Usyk over Daniel Dubois, that would have been the knockout of the year. I know that there's like another recent candidate that happened here, what it was a few days ago or something. But when Oleksandr Usyk checked Daniel Dubois, I was like, God damn, boy. Like I said though, with Brian Norman Jr. laying that dude flat, nah, that's knockout of your year right now. I don't know if anything's gonna be able to top that unless Brian Norman Jr., as it was mentioned, unless Brian Norman Jr. spectacularly knocks out Devin Haney or something. I don't know. It got to be like something that has a big magnitude or something with high result, or like say, or if there was a knockout at Canelo versus Crawford or something. That could probably be the leading candidate. But as of right now, Brian Norman Jr. having that knockout there, when he defended that WBO title over in Japan, that's it. But hey, shout out to Oleksandr Usyk for that knockout over Daniel Dubois. But here, this is coming off of that win where he became the undisputed champion once again. Daniel Dubois had the IBF belt. Lewis lost it to Oleksandr Usyk. And now here you go. WBO makes that order with Usyk and the WBO interim champion in Joseph Parker, right? So there, with that being said, that is what from the at least the document there is July 22nd. Here we are on August 31st. Okay, here we are on August 31st, and we hadn't had any progress when it came to the whole thing with Oleksandr Usyk and having that that order. You know what I'm saying? But as of right now, they hadn't had any progress when it came to that. Looked like it was Oleksandr Usyk that had a back injury. Well, yeah, about all that. About all that. You feel me? Yeah, there was a little bit of a problem. A little bit of a problem. Because according to social media or whatever it was, right? You had Oleksandr Usyk apparently involved in, a little bit of a dance thing or whatever it is, right? So one thing to say that you have a back injury, but it's a thing, right? When you apparently, yeah, or doing a little bit of a jig here and there, and doing the two step in the electric slide, or the robot or whatever it is that he's doing. Yeah, nah, that's something there. You know what I mean? Hold up, real quick. My guy Timothy Taylor in the building. It said, "What Jake Paul with a jab? Could he keep Tank off of him and win a decision?" Mm, Depends on his level of activity. I mean, the whole thing that he had with Little Chavez, as I say, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., when he had the decision win over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., guess he had a little bit of activity there, but it's more about, what he's going to do as far as like overall activity. Again, it's an exhibition match, exhibition fight. Who knows like how that's going to, sort itself out. There's going to be anything serious as far as like, actual, like for one, like what the size of the gloves will be, the amount of rounds it would be, um, the minutes. I mean, it'll probably be 3 minutes anyway, but the amount of rounds, all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So multiple factors that we haven't necessarily found out quite yet. And it's basically we're at the end of August. It's going to be September, and the fight, like I said, is in November. So there's still like a lot of details left off that. You know what I'm saying? Let me freaking Oleksandr Usyk, boy. I'm telling you, Usyk, boy. I would have said here, shout out to Secret Dance Move. He says that Usyk should be stripped and not be given any more extensions. I mean, yeah, if you strip him, you strip him, you know. But the thing that kind of like sucks in a sense when it comes to world titles, depending on who it is, it really wouldn't matter to them, at a certain point. And here with Oleksandr Usyk, I mean, everyone knows that Oleksandr Usyk is not just the undisputed heavyweight champion, but he's clear cut the number one fighter in the heavyweight division. So stripping him of the WBO title and giving it to Joseph Parker really doesn't mean too much there in a sense, because it would just still just say that, hey, he just doesn't have the WBO title. If they stripped him of the IBF title, right? And Daniel Dubois ended up being the IBF champion. He and then fought Daniel Dubois and just proved himself to be better than Daniel Dubois. So I mean, whether he fights Joseph Parker or doesn't fight Joseph Parker next, I don't think it really matters that much at this point for Oleksandr Usyk. You got the thing here with Joseph Parker fighting Fabio Wardley in October. So, like I said, at least right now, you got Joseph Parker as the WBO interim champion. You got Fabio Wardley there. Let me check here with the WBO rankings. He's not quite there at the in the WBO rankings at this point, or at least not right now. At least it's not what I'm seeing. So we got to see how that's going to be able to sort itself out. But I think that's a fairly good, should be a fairly good scrap there, between those two guys. You know what I mean, it'll be on a Queensberry Promotions show, so we'll see what happens with all of that. But on the flip side there, when it comes to Oleksandr Usyk, he's had his fights with Tyson Fury. He had his recent fight here with Daniel Dubois. 2 fights with Fury, 2 fights with Dubois, 2 fights with Anthony Joshua. And it's like at this point, being the undisputed cruiserweight champion, being an undisputed heavyweight champion, yes, 2 times, but we all know the whole thing with technicalities and all that type of stuff. He's still, clear cut the number 1 heavyweight. As of right now, I still have him at number 1 in the Boxing Source pound for pound rankings. I'll update them because I got to change the thing up as far as like what's going on around number 10 or so when it comes to that. But you have Oleksandr Usyk there at number 1 in the pound for pound rankings, right? So fight with Parker, it's like, we'll see how that goes. Secret Dance Move is putting in his vote for Fabio Wardley in his bout against Joseph Parker. Looks like he says he hopefully will knock Joseph Parker out. Now, the thing with the heavyweight division, you have, of course, like some of the guys that have been in there for a good little minute. When I talk about Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker has been there for a good little minute as well. He had been the former WBO champion before losing that belt to Anthony Joshua some time back. But you got, those guys within that particular group. But then you have the next guys that are around there, like Daniel Dubois, Agit Kabiel, Fabio Wardley, as mentioned there, at 30 years old, that could be like that next group of fighters there within the heavyweight division. But will it be to the point where we had, those guys that kind of like revitalized, in a sense, the heavyweight division in the Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko, or Tyson Fury, something like that? You know what I mean? I'm not sure, how that will go. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Tim Taylor here on the live chat with a question. Is Errol Spence Jr. being underestimated in the 154-pound division just because he lost one fight to the best fighter in the world in Terrence Crawford? Pretty good question. And here's the thing with that particular standing. We'll go back to July 2023. Okay, July 2023 with those guys, Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford fighting each other for the undisputed welterweight championship. There was not only that, some people, including myself, had both Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford within the top 5 of the pound for pound rankings. Okay. Errol Spence had pretty much like proven himself against all of those guys that were out there welterweight, whether it was Sean Porter or Danny Garcia or your Dennis Ugas or anybody like that. You know what I mean? And Terrence Crawford, did his thing, of course, in the lightweight, super lightweight, and then going up in the welterweight division, right? So with Terrence Crawford being able to do what he did, that kind of like made it to the point where Errol Spence, even though he had like been viewed as one of those top pound fighters, that it kind of like gave people a second look at Errol Spence Jr. overall. Now, if he goes in here and enters himself in the 154-pound division, it just depends on how we would be viewed against a number of those world champions and contenders at 154 pounds. Of course, we got this thing coming up here that's recently announced with Sebastian Fundora defended the WBC belt against Keith Thurman. Okay, you had Tim Tszyu, who Sebastian Fundora recently defeated. You got Jerome Busenis is having his fight against Luis Lima in October. All right. You got Bakram Murtazalia that's still looking for a fight as an IBF champion. You got Virgil Ortiz Jr. that's going to be facing Erickson Lubin. We got a number of other fights there at 154 pounds. Well, we got a rematch that's coming up too with Sergey Boychuk and Brandon Adams. That's going to be on September 13th, right? So a lot of action that's out there at 154 pounds that Errol Spence could get himself in there and be entered in and be a real contender, if anything, right? So we got to see how, first off, we got to see one, if Errol Spence is going to be coming back for real. They say maybe December, maybe January. And number two, would it be against a fighter that was formerly the undisputed champion at 154 pounds in Jermell Charlo? That's going to be something there, man. Secret Dead Smooth here says, they call Parker Average Joe for a reason. Hey, if you remember like his first run as a WBO heavyweight champion and some of the fights that he had there before he ended up losing to Anthony Joshua, that kind of like goes to that particular point. You don't even have a fight scheduled at 154, man. So yeah, that's the thing, man. And he says, hey, so people got to move on. Like Spence will never be back in the boxing ring, man. Like he's out there, he's chilling out with his kids. He's out there, having going on cruises and all that type of stuff. He got things set with a couple of fighters. They're within the within the Dallas area or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Got a few investments here and there. He can be pretty good. The only thing is like you mentioned the name Errol Spence, and it's like the boxing folks go crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, like go back to what it was last March, right? When you had that first bout between Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu, and at the time it was for the WBC and WBO belts, right? And then you remember at the time, this is like after Terrence Crawford had beat Errol Spence Jr., had been the undisputed champion, was looking to plan to move up to 154 pounds, and as the WBO super champion at welterweight, he could have been the number one contender or the mandatory challenger for the WBO belt at 154. And there were like hints that he could face the winner of those two guys at the time. That was put out there. As far as like the response, it was okay. But Errol Spence put out the tweet saying, listen, I got next on the winner. Folks went crazy. You know what I'm saying? Look at, and then of course what happened in the result after the bout, Sebastian Fundora getting that decision win, Errol Spence going and stepping in the ring, folks was going, pretty much folks was going crazy. So it still has that effect, you know what I mean? It still has that effect there with with Errol Spence Jr. Shout out to L-Dub Boxing here in the building. What's going on with you? Hopefully you're on the lookout here with these WBA rankings. I'm hoping that it's supposed to be coming out today. I don't know if it's going to be today or maybe tomorrow or something like that, but I'm looking to see if there's going to be an update there with the WBA, right? Says that Bakram is the most avoided boxer in boxing right now. Incorrect. But here's something here. Backroom needs to change his promotional team and get a new promoter. Yes, he does. But the thing with Backroom is you can't be having public statements out on Twitter or X talking about people don't want to fight me, people don't want to do this, people don't want to do that. But then when someone steps up and says, "Hey, I'm here to fight you," and you say, "No, you're not. Your name's not big enough." Can't do that. Can't do that. Here we are. We're in August 31st, 2025. His last bout was in October against Tim Tszyu. It's something there where, oh, yeah, you talk about Erickson Lubin, but you can't even get a deal done with Erickson Lubin, but yet Erickson Lubin is able to get a deal done with Virgil Ortiz Jr. That should tell you something. You know what I mean? As L Dub says, hey, Backroom is a B-side champion. No money behind him. It's business. Fighters are rushing. Fighters aren't rushing to fight him, actually, I would say, because he has zero value. Yeah, zero value. You know what I mean? Like, you could be the IBF champion. You could say that you did this to Tim Tszyu over in Orlando or whatever. But if you don't have any value and if your promoters ain't really backing you like that, then you're not going to have the opportunity to, face either a name fighter or whatever it is, right? I mean, look, as I mentioned, his last bout was in October of last year. Okay. You have a lot of these contenders that are out there, regardless if it's, Erickson Lubin, as I mentioned, that had his win over Ardrell Holmes over in Kissimmee, Florida, to basically be the top contender or whatever, mandatory or whatnot. Now, he ain't even going for that. He's going up against Virgil Ortiz Jr. Okay. You got Josh Kelly that's, next up. And remember, folks are talking about, hey, maybe Josh Kelly would be the next opponent for Jerome Boots Ennis in his move up to 154. And that didn't necessarily happen. Eddie Hearn made it public that, Josh Kelly has been getting this money for Riyadh season, this and that. So the offer that was put out to him ain't really doing much. Whether that was true or not, kind of like makes a little bit of sense in this in that aspect. So with that being said, if they didn't necessarily, accept the deal being a B side of sorts with Jerome Boots Ennis, what would it be like potentially in a negotiation with Baka Murtazalia? Yeah, that ain't quite going to work. Let's see. A question here, real quick. Shout out to everyone here on the live chat, man. Big ups to y'all, man. Big ups to y'all, participating and everything like that. Here, if you can do so, hit the like button, hit the share button. Here, when it comes to being on YouTube or being on Rumble, you know what I mean. And I want to get to this. What is the question here? Timothy Taylor asks, "Is it possible that Fedor Zayas and Virgil Ortiz could freeze out Boots Ennis at the 154-pound division?" Possible. That's why the thing is with what's going on right now as far as like the WBA, right? You got what recently happened there with the interim championship. There you had with that Shaldo Basparao getting that win. Now he's the WBA interim champion. He could potentially be elevated to WBA full champion as soon as Terrence Crawford faces Canelo Alvarez for that undisputed super middleweight championship. So you can have Basparao as the WBA world champion at 154 pounds. And then when Boots Ennis fights with Malima there as that a final eliminator, he gets through that bout, then he could have next up with, Basparao for that WBA belt. You know what I mean? It said, shout out to L Dub. He says currently Josh Kelly is, hold on, I'll go because it didn't have the number on there. But currently in the WBO, Josh Kelly is number 1 in the WBO. Okay. So yeah, number 1. So he don't have to fight Brockrum. It's more value in a fight with Xander Zayas. Yep, definitely is. It definitely is. So I mean, that's the thing that Bakram Murtazalia is currently dealing with right now. You got a Virgil Ortiz Jr. that has more value. You have a Sebastian Fundora that has more value. You have a Xander Zayas that has more value. You got Boots Ennis that's coming up that has more value. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of like shows that, hey, this is what you're basically working with at this juncture while you're the IBF champion. Now, I mean, in some cases that's happened with guys that have held world titles. They hold a world title, but their name and their backing don't really give them enough to put them in position to fight the more well-known guys within their division. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Stretch Out Boxing here. What's good with you? You know what I'm saying? Just doing open boxing talk here, at least for this particular point. Hold on a second. I just started something here right now. As I gotta get something going. Not sure what's going on right now. Hopefully, I'm able to. As I just about forgot about something here for a little bit, but let me see. Yeah, I just had the thing here with this. All right, yeah. So let me see. Yeah. Oh well. I ain't know this thing was like this fast. Anyway, yeah. It's whatever, man. No, I was just looking at the thing for a live draft, but I mean, I'll see how this goes. Cause yeah, sometimes the whole thing with the fantasy football, it's like random as far as like what's going on there. But man, first pick, automatically pick was Puka Nakua. Yeah, that's lame as shit. That's lame as shit. All right, but it is what it is on that, right? All right, so like I was saying there with that situation as far as like 154 pounds, right? Bakhmut Azaliev holding that IBF world title in this particular situation, it's like, whatever. Because you got what it said, like Eric Salubin there that was at number one. You got Josh Kelly at number two, or number three, I think, because you had the number two thing vacant, right? You have the thing there with as I said, Josh Kelly. Then you had Callum Walsh, right? And Callum Walsh is in a bout against Fernando Vargas on September 13th. So that tells you, what's going on right now when it comes to IBF rankings. It's not good. Sergey Boachuk, as I mentioned, in a fight. Conor Ben got his thing going on with the Chris Eubank Jr. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? So, and hey, I'll go up even further. Jesus Ramos got a fight coming up at 160 pounds. Keith Thurman is going up against Sebastian Fundora. Usman Lima going up against Boots Ennis. Arjo Holmes Jr. just had his fight with Eric Salubin. So how you going to look if you're going to be fighting someone like Arjo Holmes? So you know what? Bakhmut Azaliev could actually end up fighting a guy that he said that he's too big to be wasting time with. And that's Charles Conwell. That's crazy. Oh man, that's gonna be something, man. That's gonna be something. Oh well, I'm gonna pick something here on this whole thing with the fantasy football or whatever it is, right? I'm gonna get a quarterback. This what the 7th round? Yeah, I'm gonna get a quarterback. How about that? All right. What's it? Tim Taylor here. Shout out to you, man. It says, why is the great middleweight division turning into the ignored and invisible division? Man, because you don't have those notable guys out there, like it was when you had like a Charlo or Canelo or Golovkin or Daniel Jacobs or anything like that. And when you have something, you don't necessarily have, like, for example, you don't have like a Canelo, you don't have an American fighter that's been there as like a top contender at this point. So you don't have anything like that right now. So you got a unified champion in Janibek Alimhanli that I guess is trying to look for a fight. You got Carlos Adames that looks like he's trying to get something in with Janibek to at least have that be a unification fight. But you also have the mandatory challenger out there for the WBC and the Sultanal. That should be there within that same promotional group as Janibek. Makes for a messy situation right now. So, and what I just mentioned there with Jesus Ramos, he's going up against Shane Mosley Jr. for the WBC interim belt. They're at the 160-pound division, right? So, but if you look at that list, you're not seeing that many guys that are notable in a sense. And then I got to work on one particular fighter that's going up in the rankings right now, particularly in the WBO. There might be some news with that fighter real soon, but I can't necessarily mention that at this particular point. You know what I mean? But yeah, that being, that just kind of like, gives you the whole gist of what's happening at 154 and 160 and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And that kind of like says, hey, if we can't get any type of clarity at 160, we should be. You got, as I mentioned, Janabek, unified champion. You got Carlos Adames, WBC champion. You got Erislandy Lara, WBA champion. We haven't even heard anything in reference to Erislandy Lara. So I'm like, are we gonna be doing anything to kind of like make that be out there? You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is on that point. Let me see. Oh shoot. I was just looking at the thing here. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a live fantasy football draft too. So there you go. Oh man. Let me see. Should I pick a quarterback? What's the highest ranked fight? Vontae Smith. Who I got on my roster right now? Do I got a flex? I already got a flex. That's crazy. Oh man! All right, as you see it there, we got live coverage here. We got a draft going on. Oh, damn it, man! You know what? All right, I got it. All right, bet. I made the pick. There you go. All right, so that's like the whole thing that's been going on, and as I said there, within those particular divisions and whatnot, right? What else is out there? Oh, wanted to get into this too. So looks like there was like a recent interview of the current WBC lightweight champion Shakur Nafis Saeed Stevenson, as I always say, right? And in one part of that, let's see. Oh man, I'm on the clock again. This is freaking stupid. Excuse me, y'all. Let's see here. I'll just do that. How about that? All right, yeah. All right. So with Shakur Stevenson, he was talking about this topic that has been brought up recently in reference to who he could be fighting and where he could be moving at when it comes to either the lightweight division or the super lightweight division. Yeah, there's been recent talk about him potentially facing Teofimo Lopez for Teofimo Lopez's WBO and lineal super lightweight title. Okay, with Shakur Stevenson's status, he has already made his defense against a mandatory challenger that was, over in New York, right, against William Zepeda, where he got that decision win. Okay. Teofimo Lopez, as a WBO champion, was able to make a defense against his mandatory challenger, Arnold Barbosa Jr., in May, ended up winning by decision. All right. So both of these fighters don't have to worry about a mandatory for at least 12 months. Both of them. So it could, open that possibility up to have this challenge take place. Now, there's been claims that, you may have a, one side that's signed, another side maybe not. But when you talk about Teofimo Lopez, as I said some time ago, is a turn down king. Okay, and he's turned down multiple offers, multiple fights, back to back to back. Okay, so we're here with Shakur Stevenson. Even with Shakur Stevenson moving up, and he's been, of course, the former WBO champion at 126 pounds, the WBC and WBO champion at 130 pounds, and now the current WBC champion, at 135 pounds. Here he will have an opportunity to become 4-division world champion, okay, and become a lineal champion if he gets his win over Teofimo Lopez, but that's if they fight, okay? So while it may look like it's a good matchup or an interesting matchup, I doubt it's going to happen. Now, if it did happen and Shakur Stevenson ended up winning, there was another thing that he was saying, and that was, even with that, he said he would win and then he would relinquish that belt over to his quote-unquote brother, Keyshawn Davis. I'm like, come on, man. We can't still be doing this. It's like he's Andre the Giant winning that match against Hulk Hogan, where that doppelganger referee counted 1, 2, 3 to give Andre the Giant the world championship, and then immediately after Andre the Giant gave the belt to the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. No, man, we can't be having all of this WWE type stuff going on here in boxing. Listen, I know y'all are saying y'all brothers. Y'all been, hanging out. Y'all been, kind of like lockstep or whatever it is, right? But I said this before and I say it again, money is money, bro. Money is money. All right. Y'all could pretty much like put all that stuff aside, make some money together, and have a fight happen. Okay. Listen, Floyd Mayweather and Zab Judah fought. Adrian Broner and Sean Porter fought. Okay. Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford fought. Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence fought. That don't mean y'all can't fight. Come on, man. What are we doing here? You feel me? Yeah. Why is Teofimo Lopez turning down great paying fights to fight low paying fights? Now this is kind of like mentioned just recently, actually. I think Teofimo Lopez is kind of afraid of something happening. He's afraid of losing again. Okay. You seen the high that he had when he had the win against Vasyl Lomachenko to become the unified lightweight champion. And then the next bout against George Kambosos Jr., he ended up losing by decision to lose all of those belts. Okay. And his overall value ain't really high in the first place. Okay. So when you see his fights against Sandor Martin or against Jermaine Ortiz, right? Or like anything outside of that, he doesn't really give that much interest or that much value. Arnold Barbosa Jr. or whatever it was, that wasn't really like a fight that like said, "Oh snap, this is what's happening." Teofimo Lopez is fighting who? Oh snap! No, you don't necessarily get that. You know what I mean? So with that being said, Teofimo Lopez, rejecting offers or rejecting bouts with say for example, Subriel Matias or Jerome Bucenis or Brian Norman Jr. or Devin Haney. Like if there's like any chance or any shot that he could lose, he ain't really gonna go for that. You feel me? So I mean that's like something on his part that he's gotta really be on the lookout for as far as like, okay, what else is out there that he could go ahead and take that isn't that much risk at all. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking that is what he's currently going through right now. Because yeah, if you look at his resume, right? Let's go through his resume when it came to his his bouts after Lomachenko. So I'm gonna see here if I'll be able to jump on this thing here real quick, right? So it should be showing here. Yep. All right. So you had the thing there with Vasyl Lomachenko, right? And then George Kambosos Jr., right? Pedro Campa, Sandor Martin, Josh Taylor, Jermaine Ortiz, Steve Claggett, Arnold Barbosa Jr. That is, the resume that you have there from Teofimo Lopez. Like, if y'all look at that, y'all see that and compare that to a number of other fighters, particularly when he had his run here at 140 pounds. You compare that to, not necessarily what I would say, Gary Antoine Russell, who's the current champion, okay, or thing there with what I would say with Subriel Matias, right? You got Subriel Matias potentially, right? Or as you say there with who else would be out there? Like I said, within the super welterweight division that you could say, I mean not super welterweight, but the super lightweight division, right? What about Alberto Puello, former WBC champion? Like those guys have kind of like had better fights overall. You know what I'm saying? And with that being said, right? I would be like, Teofimo Lopez got to do better. He got to do better. You know what I mean? He got to do better. With that being said, I would want to see like how he kind of like sorts himself out on what could be next for him, because they look like they try to offer multiple fights for him, and he's like, nah. Says, good question. Will Turkey eventually wash his hands from Tio and stop making them any offers for a big fight? Yeah. Like, I mean, if you had something in front of you, they say they claim that they had him and Boots locked in for a fight. Nah. They looked like they were real close to having Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney, and Teofimo Lopez was like, nah. So now with Turkey Al Sheikh, if he ends up doing that, then you might as well forget it. You know what I'm saying? You might as well forget it. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to see if I could. Yeah, all right, there you go. I was trying to remove that thing there because you'll be able to see this here live on the YouTube or Rumble. But Teofimo Lopez has burnt a lot of bridges there when it comes to top rank. And now it looks like with Turkey LLC. Okay. Now I've said this in the past with Teofimo Lopez going from last year. He was a WBO super lightweight champion, super champion there for 140 pounds. He had an opportunity to move up to welterweight and become the immediate challenger for Brian Norman Jr. for that WBO welterweight title. Didn't want to do that. He had something out there for Subriel Matias. They would have allowed him to have a fight with Subriel Matias. Didn't necessarily do that either. You know what I mean? So with that, I'm like, come on, man. What are we doing here? So Teofimo Lopez could get himself locked out or basically shut out, even while being the WBO and lineal champion at 140 pounds. He could be, pretty much locked out. Listen, we had an instance there where, what was it? Mikey Garcia was inactive for an extended period of time while being a world champion and being under top rank. Hey, it could be not much different here with Teofimo Lopez. Regardless of what currently is going on with top rank, you could still have this happen here with Teofimo Lopez. So I'm not, necessarily, all too, surprised if Teofimo Lopez ends up getting locked out in a sense. You know what I mean? So we could see that. All right. But yeah, I need to, I wanted to talk about that when it comes to Teofimo Lopez. I said the thing there when it comes to Shakur Stevenson, you should go ahead and just, if you have a fight with Teofimo Lopez, cool. If you don't have a fight with Teofimo Lopez, maybe you could have something in the works here with Lamont Rose Jr. I know that they were talking back and forth about potentially having a fight. That would be good for both fighters. You know what I'm saying? But this whole thing about not facing Keyshawn Davis, whether it's at 135 or 140, come on. Now, what I wouldn't mind is a fight with Teofimo Lopez and Keyshawn Davis. That is a fight that I want to see, and I wanted to see for a good little minute. You know what I mean? Because Keyshawn Davis has been calling out Teofimo Lopez for at least 2 years. We all know about their whole little back and forth that happened at the top ranked gym. We all know about the little bit of a scuffle that involved Teofimo Lopez Sr. I'm saying, why not? They should go ahead and have that fight. Go ahead and let that thing take place. All that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Might as well get that going, get that jumped off, or whatever it is. You feel me? So that's what I want to see on that front, right? But with that being said, I wanted to kind of go through this particular schedule here real quick. Just make one more shot here. Nope, I refreshed the page there for the WBA rankings, saying that this time at live at 8:31 p.m. Eastern time, the WBA has not updated their rankings. God dang it! All right, so here coming up, I guess, I was saying there with Osley Iglesias versus Vladimir Shishkin. That is an IBF super middleweight eliminator. That's September 4th in Montreal. You got Mick Conlon in Dublin, Ireland, facing Jack Bateson. Yeah. But also, of course, with the whole thing with ProBox, at ProBox event, that's going down, of course, in Washington, D.C. there Friday, September 5th. So you'll be able to look forward to that. They got, Eduardo Sugar Nunez versus Christopher Diaz for the IBF junior lightweight title. there. That's going to be on September 6th. That's going to be live on the Zone, right? And we got like a number of things that's going to be happening for, of course, September 11th in Las Vegas and September 13th, of course, with that Canelo versus Crawford event there in Las Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Well, quick question: is Keyshawn in legal trouble? That's something I have to look into. That's something I would have to look into. Don't necessarily know as of yet. But what I'm saying, I have to look into it, given the situation that happened over in Norfolk with him being over 4 pounds overweight for the schedule bout that he was going to have against Edwin De Los Santos for the WBO lightweight title. But outside of that, we'll see. Yeah, we got Oscar Valdez. They're also that's going to be in the ring on September 6th. One last run. Yeah, he's supposed to be nearing about hope. Man, I had the thing up here somewhere, man. Where's that thing with Oscar Valdez? Against Ricky Medina there in Mexico as well. You know what I'm saying? So he's gonna be fighting there in that super featherweight division against Ricky Medina. They're in bout scheduled for 10 rounds. So we got that also as well. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, the thing with Keyshawn Davis, I don't know if he's really in legal trouble. I mean, the last time I saw him out was the fight card that happened in Queens, New York. He was there, I guess, to watch his brother in action against Williams Zepeda. You know what I'm saying? So he was out there. Him and his brothers were out there all doing their thing. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. Because I don't think he's gonna be in that much legal trouble. I just felt like, to be honest with you, seeing him live in February, right? Uh, when he fought Dennis Berinchik for the WBO lightweight title, seeing him live. After that fight, he should have went up to super lightweight right there. But given the situation, given a plan and everything like that, everything was going according to plan from last year. They said, hey, you get this opportunity to fight for a world title, you win the world title, then you could, have a defense of that title in your hometown in Norfolk. And he was, really looking forward to doing that. But like I said, man, the weight just couldn't cooperate. It happens. But here, at this particular juncture, I think, they're trying to see what's going to be next with them. I know that he said that he's semi-retired or whatever it is, but I think people still, would be looking forward to seeing him in action, though. You know what I mean? Oh, sorry. What is the legal amount of clenbuterol allowed by the WBC? I don't know. I have to look into that. I'll have to look into that, man. I would. Oh, goodness, man. So, with that, with that being said, man, I have to see, what else is, going on or going down, or whatever it is, here on this thing. So that kind of like covers mostly what I had in reference to what's happening, what's upcoming. Like I said, I'll be covering the thing there for Pro Box that's here for September 5th. All right, that's No Excuse Promotions alongside Pro Box TV there with their presentation. Of course, headlined by Short Dog Jordan White versus Renee Tejas for the vacant NABF lightweight title. Okay, you're also, going to have, a number of fighters there from the DC area that'll be featured on this card. Like I said, I had a very extensive preview of the fight card that was on Friday there. So, of course, with Jordan White versus Renee Tejas, Soliman Segal versus Brian Acosta, Jonathan Cardoso versus Luis Torres, Francois Scarborough Jr. versus D'Angelo Keys, Irvin Fuller III versus Dominic Griffin, Derek Scooter Davis against Leandro Medina, Ben Johnson versus Luis Ramos. Keeps going. Trayvon Marshall's there in action as well. You know what I'm saying? I have to look at something here because we might have a recent change in the card, a recent update. All right. So I'll have to post that here on X or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, that is pretty much what I got here for this edition of the Boxing Source podcast. Thanks for everyone that's been able to listen live. If you haven't done so already, hit the like button. If you're on, YouTube or on Rumble, if you're listening here via audio form through Spotify or whatever you use for listening to podcasts, if you enjoy it, just share it there. Like I said, we're gonna have more things going on and things going down over the course of Fight Week 4, the Pro Box card that is for Friday night. So whenever you can, just follow the page here for that. Hopefully, I'll have more information about the fight cards that are scheduled for September 11th in Las Vegas, and then more when it comes to the fight card at Allegiant Stadium September 13th. Okay, so with that being said, thanks once again, everybody, for tuning in. And here, I will catch y'all later. All right, peace out.